My parents attempted to pressure me to become my disabled sister's caretaker after I sacrificed my entire childhood for her. So, then I contacted Adult Protective Services for abandonment. Can you imagine giving up your entire childhood, only for your own parents to demand you sacrifice your entire adult future too? My family tried to force me into a life I never wanted. And the battle that followed, well, it changed everything. You won't believe what happened next. So, I'm 25 now, and for the past 3 years, I've been living in this ground floor flat. I worked my absolute ass off to afford it. My older sister, Holly, is 32. She has cerebral palsy and learning disabilities, meaning she needs round-the-clock care. My parents have been her caregivers her whole life, and honestly, my entire childhood revolved around Holly's needs. I never had birthday parties. Holly couldn't handle the noise. No sports. My parents couldn't drive me and watch Holly. Friends? Forget about it. Holly needed quiet. Every single family vacation was to the same accessible cabin, 2 hours away, because Holly just couldn't handle change. The second I turned 18, I was out. I moved out, got a job at a call center, and went to night school. I worked 60-hour weeks to get my graphic design degree. Finally, I landed a remote job that pays well. This flat? It's perfect. Close to shops, a little garden, everything I never had growing up. My parents? They visited maybe twice the whole time I've lived here. The only calls I ever got were when they needed me to watch Holly so they could go to a doctor's appointment or grocery shopping. I always said yes, even though Holly would scream the entire time and throw things. She hated change, remember? Then, about 6 months ago, my dad started. Your flat would be perfect for Holly, he'd say. It's all one level, wide doorways, accessible bathroom. He kept pointing out modifications I could make for her wheelchair. I just laughed it off, thinking he was making conversation. But then my mom started asking about my work schedule. How flexible was it? Could I work while caring for someone? I told her I was happy with my situation and quickly changed the subject. 2 months later, they invited me to dinner. It was an ambush. They'd already talked to Holly's social worker about transferring her care to me. They'd looked into government assistance I could get as her caregiver. They'd even figured out how to modify my flat using some grant money. They laid out this whole plan. I'd take Holly during the week, they'd take weekends. I said, absolutely not. My mom started crying. We're so tired, she sobbed. We gave up everything for Holly. Now it's your turn to help. My dad chimed in, you're being selfish, living alone in a flat that could house Holly when we're struggling. I looked at them, my voice shaking with years of pent-up resentment. I already gave up my entire childhood for Holly. No dance classes, no sleepovers, no college visits. Everything was about her. They dismissed it. That was different. You were a child then. You didn't understand sacrifice. Now you're an adult. You need to step up. I walked out, didn't speak to them for 2 weeks. Then the campaign began. They told every relative I was abandoning my disabled sister. My aunt called me, crying, how could you let Holly suffer? My grandma said she was disappointed. My cousins posted on Facebook about ableism and family responsibility, clearly aimed at me. And the worst part, my parents started bringing Holly to my flat, uninvited. They'd leave her at my door, saying they had emergencies. The first time I let them in, I watched Holly for 6 hours while they disappeared. The second time I snapped. I called Adult Protective Services and reported abandonment. My parents had to rush back and deal with the social worker. Oh, they were furious, but they couldn't say much with the social worker standing right there. Next, they tried guilt. They had Holly call me, crying, I miss you. I want to live with you. I knew they coached her. Holly couldn't express complex thoughts like that. They sent photos of Holly looking sad, with captions about how she needed her sister. They even made a scrapbook of us as kids, showcasing our bond. They conveniently ignored that in every photo, I looked miserable while Holly got all the attention. The absolute last straw? They called my employer. They told my boss I was needed for a family medical emergency and might need extended leave to care for my disabled sister. My boss was understanding, but concerned about my workload. I had to explain everything. Promise it wouldn't affect my job. That's when I decided this ends. Permanently. I spent an entire weekend at my kitchen table, laptop open, scrolling through lawyer websites until my eyes hurt. I typed family harassment lawyer, forced caregiving, legal help. Most sites were just generic, but then I found Amelia Coleman. Her bio said she specialized in boundary violations and family coercion, specifically mentioning adult children pressured into caregiving roles. It was like she was describing my exact situation. I filled out her contact form right then. Just the basics, parents showing up calling my boss. She had an opening Monday at 9 a.m. I booked it and spent the rest of the weekend trying not to think about the cost. Monday morning, I logged into the video call early, notebook full of dates and details. Amelia appeared right at 9. She looked maybe 40, short dark hair, sharp eyes that felt like they were already analyzing everything. I started explaining, trying to keep my voice steady. But within 2 minutes, she stopped me. "What your parents are doing," she said, her voice calm but firm, "isn't just annoying or pushy. It's financial and emotional abuse." Abuse. The word hit me hard. I'd thought of it as just family drama. But she explained their campaign to force me into caregiving had legal implications. She asked about the call to my employer, and I showed her the email my boss sent afterwards. Amelia leaned forward. "Workplace interference," she said. "We can use that." We spent the next hour systematically going through everything. She had me pull up my phone. The guilt trip texts, the sad Holly photos, the Facebook posts from relatives. She made notes about the 2 times they'd shown up at my flat, especially the second time when I called APS. "Do you have the police report?" she asked. I told her I had a case number. "Get a copy immediately," she instructed. "Documentation is everything." By the end of the call, I had a list of things to gather, a timeline of every incident since that dinner ambush. And I felt like someone finally believed me. This wasn't just me being dramatic. Tuesday evening, I was working on a design project when my doorbell rang. Almost 7 p.m. It rang again. Then a hard knock. I looked through the peephole. My dad's car was outside, Holly in the passenger seat. My mom was at my door, knocking harder now. My heart started racing. They'd done this before, but this time I wasn't opening it. My mom started yelling through the door. "You need to help us. We have an emergency. Just a few hours." My dad joined her, his voice louder. "You're being selfish and childish." I grabbed my phone and called the non-emergency police line. The dispatcher asked what was happening. I explained. My parents were at my door, refusing to leave after I'd asked them not to come here. She said an officer would be by. They kept knocking and yelling for another 10 minutes. "You're living in a flat that could house Holly while we struggle," my dad shouted. My mom said, "You'll understand when you're older and have your own family responsibilities." Then they must have heard the sirens. It went quiet. Car doors slammed. By the time the officer knocked, they were gone. The officer was a young guy, maybe 25. He took my information, asked what happened. I explained the ongoing harassment, showed him texts and emails. He wrote everything down, gave me a report number. "If they come back," he said, "call immediately." After he left, I texted Amelia the report number. She responded within minutes. Exactly the documentation we need. Wednesday afternoon, I was on a client call when my phone buzzed with a voicemail notification from an unknown number. After the call, I listened. It was my dad's voice, but from someone else's phone. "We tried to be reasonable," he said, cold and hard, "but you've left us no choice. We're cutting you out of our will unless you step up for family like you should have years ago." He went on about their disappointment, how I'd regret this when they were gone and had nothing. His voice had an edge I'd never heard before. I saved it, forwarded it to Amelia, asking if it mattered. She called within the hour. "Financial manipulation," she stated. "It strengthens your case significantly. Shows a pattern of using money and guilt to control you." She asked if I expected to inherit much. "Maybe $20,000, if that," I said. "Doesn't matter," she replied. "What matters is them using it as a weapon. Save every voicemail like this, and don't respond to any contact." Hanging up, I felt this weird mix of relief that it helped my case, and deep hurt that my dad had actually said those things out loud. Thursday morning, I woke up to an email from Dante, my boss. Subject line, "Private conversation needed." My stomach dropped. Video call at 10 a.m. I spent an hour trying not to panic. At 10, Dante looked concerned. My parents had called again yesterday, asking about my schedule, company family leave policies. He told them he couldn't discuss employee matters, but he needed to know what was going on. This was affecting my professional reputation. My eyes started to sting. I took a deep breath. I told him everything. My parents trying to force me into caregiving, the harassment, the lawyer. I pulled up the police report on my screen. Showed him Amelia's contact info. Proof I was handling this professionally. Dante listened, his expression softening. He said he believed me, supported me, but was worried it would affect my focus. I promised it wouldn't. Vowed to stop the harassment permanently. He said, "Okay, just keep him updated." After the call, I sat there shaky. I'd almost cried in front of my boss. My parents were now actively trying to mess with my career. Friday night, around 8 p.m., my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. It was Suzanne, my mom's sister. She launched right in. She'd heard about what was happening at a family gathering. "I can't believe you're abandoning Holly when your parents gave up everything. Everyone's saying how selfish you're being." She wanted to hear my side, but honestly, she couldn't see how I could justify this. That familiar guilt started to rise up. But I remembered Amelia's advice, don't engage. I took a breath. Calmly, I explained the actual timeline. My childhood. No parties, no friends. My parents' ambush. Them leaving Holly at my door. The APS calls. The police report from Tuesday. Suzanne went quiet. A long moment. Then she said, "I need to think about some things." She remembered some stuff from when I was growing up that she hadn't really thought about. She asked if she could call me back in a few days. "Yes," I said. After we hung up, a tiny spark of hope flickered. Maybe one family member would actually understand. The following Monday, I met Amelia at her office to file the cease and desist letter. Her office was in an old downtown building, with paneling, bookshelves crammed with legal tomes. She showed me the draft. 2 pages long, listing every incident. Uninvited visits, workplace contact, social media campaign, financial threats. It demanded they stop contacting me, my employer, or coming to my home. It outlined potential legal action, including restraining orders. Reading it made everything feel suddenly very real. Very serious. "Any changes?" Amelia asked. "No," I said. "It covers everything." She said she'd send certified mail for proof of receipt. I signed the authorization. Wrote a check for her retainer. Watching my savings take a hit hurt, but it felt necessary. Walking out, I felt powerful. And scared. I was officially escalating this. No going back. My parents' response came faster than I expected. Wednesday afternoon, my cousin Rachel sent me a screenshot. My mom's Facebook post. "Their ungrateful daughter has hired a lawyer to abandon her disabled sister." It said they'd given up everything, and now their other daughter was throwing them away. Heartbroken, they didn't understand how they'd raised someone so selfish. Dozens of comments. Relatives, family friends calling me heartless. Grandma praying for my soul. Strangers sharing it, adding their own thoughts about how terrible I was. I wanted to respond so badly, tell everyone the truth. But I remembered Amelia. Engaging would only make it worse. I called her instead. "Read her the post. Screenshot everything," she said. "Save it. This is defamation and harassment. They're trying to force you to respond publicly. Stay silent. We'll use all of this when we file for the restraining order." I spent the rest of the day blocking family members on social media, trying to focus on work while my phone buzzed endlessly. Wednesday morning, a call. From a government area code. It was Harvey Coleman, the social worker from Adult Protective Services. He was following up on both reports I'd filed about my parents abandoning Holly at my door. "Do you have time for some detailed questions?" he asked. "Yes," I said. He asked about my childhood. How much time I spent caring for Holly. Normal kid experiences. No birthday parties, no sports, no friends over. Everything revolved around Holly. Never went to college visits, because they couldn't leave her. He asked about their current behavior. I described the dinner ambush, the social media, the workplace interference. Everything. When I finished, he was quiet. Then he said a word I'd never heard before. Parentification. He explained it meant my parents had made me take on adult caregiving responsibilities as a child, when I should have been allowed to be a kid. He called it a form of abuse. It explained a lot about why I was so resistant now. I sat there, phone pressed to my ear, feeling like someone had finally put a name to something I'd felt my entire life but never understood. Harvey said he'd schedule a home visit with my parents to assess Holly's care. He'd call me after. I immediately Googled parentification. Spent an hour reading articles that described my entire childhood. Harvey called back Friday afternoon. After his visit, Holly's physical care was fine, he said. My parents had adequate resources. But then he said something that made me furious. During the visit, my parents had been telling Holly that I didn't love her anymore, that I'd moved away and forgotten about her, that I didn't want to be her sister. Harvey said Holly seemed confused and sad when he asked about me. My parents were using Holly's emotions to manipulate me, which was harmful to Holly and completely inappropriate. He was documenting this, recommending they get counseling about boundaries. I thanked him, hung up. I was shaking with anger. They weren't just harassing me anymore. They were messing with Holly's head to punish me. Holly didn't understand, and they were making her think I had abandoned her. I texted Amelia everything. She responded, "Another piece of evidence. Strong case. Ready to file for a restraining order." I typed yes without hesitation. That weekend, I documented everything. Every Facebook post from my parents. Screenshot timestamp. Every comment calling me heartless. Saved. Every nasty message from strangers who found my personal accounts. Into a folder. A timeline. Starting from that dinner 2.5 months ago. Dates and times for uninvited visits. Family pressure calls. Every manipulation. The police report. The voicemail about cutting me out of their will. Saved in 3 different places. By Sunday night, I had a 20-page document showing exactly how my parents had harassed me since I said no. Amelia called Monday morning. Finish the documentation, I told her. She asked me to email everything over. 2 hours later, she called back. The evidence is solid. The social media posts alone show harassment and defamation. Add in the workplace interference and physical intrusions. Strong case. We scheduled an appointment for Thursday. My phone rang Friday afternoon. Suzanne. I almost didn't answer. I figured she'd yell at me again, but I picked up. She started talking before I could say a word. She'd been thinking about our last conversation all week. She'd called Harvey, asked him about his assessment. He told her about parentification, about my parents telling Holly I didn't love her. Suzanne went quiet. Then, I'm so sorry. She remembered my childhood, how I never got to do anything normal, how every family gathering revolved around Holly, and no one ever asked what I wanted. She said the whole family enabled my parents' expectation that I'd sacrifice my life for Holly, just like they did. She hadn't realized how wrong it was until Harvey explained it. Then she said something that made me start crying. If you need a character witness for any legal stuff, I'll do it. I'll tell the truth about what your childhood was really like. I thanked her 5 times, hung up, and felt a wave of hope. Maybe I wasn't completely alone. The following Tuesday evening, my doorbell rang. Peephole, my dad. Alone. He looked terrible. Wrinkled clothes, dark circles under his eyes, like he hadn't slept in days. I opened the door, chain lock still on. Can I come in? Talk, he pleaded. No, I said. But I'll listen from here. He said my mom was having health problems from the stress of caring for Holly. They didn't need me to take over completely. Just some help. He looked so defeated, I almost felt bad. There are professional care options, I told him. Respite services. They can give you breaks without putting everything on me. His whole face changed. He got angry. You're trying to throw Holly away like garbage. We raised you better than to abandon family when things get hard. I already gave up my entire childhood. I shot back, my voice firm. I'm not doing it again. I shut the door while he was still talking. Thursday morning, my first appointment with Natalie Pute. Her office was an old house converted into a therapy practice. I filled out paperwork. Then we talked for almost an hour. I told her about Holly, my parents, the constant pressure, the sleepless nights, checking my phone for nasty messages. My childhood. No parties, no sports, no friends. Everything about Holly. Natalie said something that stuck with me. Your guilt about Holly isn't rational. You were a child. You had no choice in any of it. She said my parents were repeating the same pattern, sacrificing one daughter's well-being for the other. The fact that you feel guilty about protecting yourself, she concluded, shows how deeply they conditioned you to put Holly first, no matter what. We scheduled weekly appointments. I left feeling like therapy could actually help. Harvey called the following Monday with news that completely shocked me. During his assessment, he'd asked Holly directly what she wanted. Not what my parents wanted for her, but what Holly herself wanted. And Holly had told him she was interested in living with other people her age in a group home setting. She'd been watching TV shows about people with disabilities living independently and wanted to try it. Harvey said my parents had never asked Holly what she wanted. They just assumed she'd be scared of change and need to stay with them forever. But Holly was tired of being home all the time. She wanted to meet new people. I sat there, holding the phone, a weird mix of relief and anger swirling inside me. Relief that Holly actually wanted something different. Anger that my parents had never bothered to ask her. Just assumed I'd take over their role without question. My parents found out about Holly's conversation with Harvey by Wednesday. I know because they went completely insane on social media. My mom posted this long rant about how I'd poisoned their daughter against them, how I'd manipulated a social worker to steal Holly away and destroy their family. The post included my full name and my graphic design company's name. By Wednesday afternoon, I was getting messages from complete strangers. People I'd never met were telling me I should be ashamed, that I was a terrible person for abandoning my disabled sister, that I deserved whatever bad things happened to me. My anxiety went through the roof. I couldn't focus on work. I called Amelia in a panic. Screenshot everything, she said. Add it to the documentation. This social media campaign is harassment and defamation. It makes our case for a restraining order even stronger. Tuesday morning, my phone rang. Unknown number. It was the security guard from my company's main office building. Two people were in the lobby, demanding to speak with me, claiming to be my parents. They'd found the address online, driven over, even though he explained I worked remotely. "Do you want me to let them up?" he asked. "Absolutely not." I told him, asking him to tell them to leave. He said they were refusing, getting loud. I had to call the building manager, explain that my parents were harassing me, and I'd be filing a restraining order. The manager was professional, but I felt so embarrassed, like I was dragging all this family drama into my professional life. 20 minutes later, the security guard called back. My parents had finally left after the manager threatened to call the police. Thursday afternoon, I met Amelia at the courthouse to file for the restraining order. I carried a folder almost 3 inches thick. Screenshots of every post and message, the police report, documentation of them calling my employer, a written statement from Suzanne about my childhood, a letter from Harvey detailing parentification and Holly's wishes. The court clerk processed everything. We waited 2 hours before being called into a small office. The judge looked through the evidence, asked me a few questions about the harassment. Then she granted a temporary restraining order and scheduled a full hearing for 2 weeks out. Walking out, I felt this strange mix of grief and relief. I was legally separating myself from my parents. Part of me felt like I should be sad, but mostly I just felt relieved. Maybe the harassment would finally stop. The restraining order hearing happened on a cold morning in early December. I showed up with Amelia, all our evidence organized in binders. My parents were already there with their own lawyer, some guy in an expensive suit who looked at me like I was the worst person on earth. Their lawyer tried to paint me as vindictive, punishing my parents for asking for help, using the legal system to avoid family responsibility. But then the judge started reviewing the evidence. She read Harvey's testimony about parentification, how I'd been forced into a caregiver role as a child. She looked at the screenshots of my parents posting my personal info, encouraging strangers to harass me. She reviewed the documentation of them showing up at my workplace calling my employer. Then she asked about Holly's expressed wishes and Harvey's recommendation for group home placement. When she finished, she looked at my parents. Her voice was firm. Their behavior had been inappropriate and controlling. They had no right to force their daughter into caregiving or harass her for setting boundaries. She granted a permanent restraining order right there. My parents weren't allowed to contact me, come to my home, or come to my workplace. They had to stay at least 500 feet away from me at all times. Sitting in that courtroom, listening to the judge validate everything I'd been feeling my whole life, I wanted to cry with relief. Harvey called the next week with updates about Holly's transition. He was working with my parents and a group home placement specialist to find the right facility. Holly had visited 3 places and really loved one with younger residents and lots of activities. She was nervous, but excited about the change. She'd been attending orientation sessions, talking about having a roommate for the first time. Harvey said Holly asked about me, and he'd explained that I cared about her but needed some space from our parents right now. Hearing that Holly was actually happy about this move made me feel good and sad. Good, because she was finally getting opportunities to be independent and make friends. Sad, because she should have had these chances years ago, instead of being kept at home because my parents assumed she couldn't handle change. Holly moved into the group home 2 days after Christmas. I kept seeing Natalie every week through January. The whole situation left me feeling weird and mixed up. Some days, I felt relieved the harassment had finally stopped. I could go back to my normal life without checking my phone every 5 minutes. Other days, I felt guilty, like maybe I should have tried harder to help my parents. Found some middle ground that didn't end with a restraining order. Natalie kept reminding me that the guilt wasn't based on anything real. She explained that my parents had trained me from childhood to feel responsible for Holly's happiness and their stress. Just because that training was deep didn't make it true or fair. She walked me through all the times I tried to set boundaries, suggest alternatives, and my parents had shut me down or manipulated me into backing off. During one session in mid-January, I told her I kept thinking about all the years I spent taking care of Holly as a kid and wondering if I was a bad person for not wanting to do it again as an adult. Natalie looked at me. "You were never supposed to be Holly's caregiver in the first place," she said softly. "Children shouldn't raise their siblings. Choosing not to repeat an unfair pattern doesn't make you selfish or cruel." She helped me understand that my parents had their own problems with control and martyrdom that had nothing to do with me. Protecting myself from their dysfunction was healthy, even when other people said I was wrong. Suzanne called in late January, asking to meet for coffee near my flat. I was nervous. Even though she'd apologized, Part of me worried she might try to guilt-trip me again. But when I got there, she ordered us drinks and immediately started talking about my mom's childhood in this quiet, serious way. My grandmother, she explained, was exactly like my mom, always creating some crisis that made her the center of attention and made everyone else responsible for fixing her problems. When my mom was growing up, my grandmother would get sick or upset anytime someone tried to do something independent, and the whole family had to drop everything to take care of her emotional needs. Suzanne explained that my mom learned to get importance and control by being the person who sacrificed everything. And now she was doing the same thing, making Holly's care into this impossible burden that defined her whole identity. Suzanne said this didn't excuse how my parents treated me or make their behavior okay, but it helped her understand why they couldn't see how unfair they were being. My mom genuinely believed that suffering for your family was the only way to prove you love them, Suzanne concluded, and she couldn't understand why I didn't want that same life. Hearing about this generational pattern made me feel sad for my mom in a way I hadn't before, like she was trapped in a cycle she didn't even recognize. But it also made me more sure that I'd done the right thing by breaking away. I didn't want to pass that dysfunction down to anyone else. Harvey called me in early February. He'd arranged for me to visit Holly at the group home if I wanted. I was nervous driving over there, worried Holly would be angry. But when I walked into the common room, Holly was sitting with another woman, watching TV. She lit up when she saw me. She wheeled over and started talking fast about her roommate, the art class she'd joined, the staff member who helped her learn to make her own breakfast. She took me to her room, showed me how she'd decorated it with posters and photos she'd picked herself. She introduced me to staff members, calling me her sister with a proud confidence that made my chest feel tight. We sat for almost an hour, having an actual conversation about her life, her activities, her new friends, foods she wanted to try. It was completely different from all those years of me just managing her needs. For the first time, we were talking like two real people, not caregiver and patient. I realized I'd never actually known Holly as a person before this moment. By early March, I'd fallen into a new routine. I saw Holly every other week at the group home. I had coffee with Suzanne once a month. My parents were completely out of my life because of the restraining order. And honestly, most days, I didn't think about them at all. I still had sessions with Natalie every 2 weeks, because some days the guilt would hit me hard, triggered by something random like seeing a family at the grocery store or hearing a song that reminded me of childhood. On those days, I'd feel sad about the family rupture and wonder if there was some other way I could have handled everything. But Natalie kept walking me through the facts, reminding me that I'd tried boundaries, suggestions, compromise, and my parents had responded with harassment and manipulation every single time. She helped me remember that I had worked incredibly hard to build an independent life, and I deserved to keep it without sacrificing myself again. Holly was genuinely happy in the group home, with choices and community and staff who treated her like a capable adult instead of a permanent child. I could never have given her that kind of life, even if I'd let my parents move her into my flat. The restraining order meant I finally had peace and safety in my own home. So, what would you have done if your family pushed you this far? Have you ever had to draw a line with your loved ones to protect yourself? Let me know in the comments below. I'd really love to hear your thoughts.